Buenas, galera, bem-vindo a mais um vídeo que eu vou falar Palácio, jogando Dungeon Keeper 3. E vamos pro segundo vídeo aí, a gente fez o tutorial no último vídeo, fizemos o primeiro capítulo da campanha, mas o primeiro capítulo ainda é tutorial, né? Então, imagina os primeiros episódios vai ser um tutorial do que é o jogo, né?
The knowledge-thirsty evil obviously couldn't get enough of these crazy tutorials. All right then, let's improve our knowledge of the dungeon. The absolute evil's creatures gathered experience from battles over the course of time, and thus reached new levels. This was to be welcomed, as higher-level creatures were much more powerful. Unfortunately, the creatures also became harder to please as their levels increased, and had the impudence to demand new things. Unbelievable! Well, that borders on cheese. Poor creatures, for example, would later demand beer that they themselves produced in the brewery. But the brewery was still a long way off, as the annoyed evil's little snots had once again proved their lack of intelligence and hadn't built any workplaces in the dungeon. Toolboxes would later be needed for the brewery. These were produced by little snots at workplaces in the workshop. Sighing, the once again disappointed by its workers' evil, set about building the workplace.
Eu tenho que fazer o workshop também.
The little snots willingly set to work producing toolboxes with a stupid grin on their faces. These were needed to build the workplace in the brewery. A cast iron brewing kettle made out of toolboxes? Computer game logic. The not particularly known for its patience evil patiently waited for enough toolboxes to be available.
Nem sei se é pra lá que tem que ir. Fabriquei duas, o que precisa fazer mais?
A whole pack of realm-forged staff was locked up in a buried room, probably because no one wanted to pay them anymore. They seemed to be more than just angry.
Aí, agora vai vir aqui fabricar. Boa. Vazou aqui.
Your dungeon heart is under attack. The splendid evil had finally produced enough toolboxes by waiting in boredom. It quickly set about building the brewing kettle. The brewing kettle stood proudly, and the diligent little snots went directly to work producing the delicious brew, so that the horde creatures could soon start knocking it back. All that was missing was someone playing some good old-fashioned folk music. Then again, maybe not. Always makes my ears bleed. But now for something completely different, as the hard-working evil now had access to the lecture hall. There, additions to normal research in the form of scrolls could be made for small amounts of gold, time, and evilness. The always slavering for something new evil quickly began to try them out.
Ah, agora... Ah, tá. Vai precisar dessa sala aqui pra fazer pesquisa, então é isso? Eu não tenho ouro, né?
Excellent choice.
Eu já pesquisei um dos scrolls.
A whole pack of Realmforged staff was locked up in a buried room, probably because no one wanted to pay them anymore. They seemed to be more than just angry. Very interesting. I would have researched that too. Splendid work. The good-humored evil had not only satisfied its alcoholic creatures, but at the same time learned more about research. It now considered itself well-equipped to begin converting the lessons learned into evil, nasty deeds.
Vamos fazer mais capítulozinho?
The final exam. The
Exame final. Será que vou começar do início?
And now it's time for a good book. I still have this comic, and if I were to make myself a drink, I could... Oh, wait. You're here? What? I thought we'd done all the tutorials. What do you mean the menu offers a fourth tutorial? But I don't have any more documents for that. I'd love to work with professionals just once. Those boneheads at Realmforge can't even get the main menu right. They're probably busy building the Berlin airport. Well, since you're already here, we can... Oh, crap. Third person. Well, since the already arrived evil was already there, and probably forget that drink, the keeping the narrator from his hard-earned drink and his lovely Marvel comic book evil commenced yet another tutorial. In this one, it would, learn something about, traps and spells, like, how to make and use them. It was a pretty, free-form tutorial, as if someone had just made it up really quickly. It was about defending the dungeon against attacking heroes. A few traps had already been placed. These were ready to make life difficult for every hero that approached them. Some others were manually triggered by a blow from the Hand of Terror. Here, timing was everything. The Arcanium already held a lot of mana ready to be used for powerful spells.
Entendi.
A suspicious trampling of heavy boots and clanging of armor was heard in the dungeon. Soon, the first heroes would enter the dungeon.
Algumas armadilhas são ativadas manualmente.
There are enemies in your dungeon.
Ah, não morreu os carinha tudo? Ah, tem que botar 5 Hero Waves. Ó.
There are enemies in your dungeon. Enemies have entered the dungeon. Enemies have entered the dungeon.
Morreu ainda?
It's payday.
Entendi, tô fazendo mais armadilhas. Só falta a última wave.
Enemies have entered the dungeon. All right, excellent work.
Excelente.
The last hero had been fended off. The tutorial was finished. Finally, I can get back to my gin and tonic. I mean, super. Well done. So, now it's time you turn to other things. Things that don't stop me from drinking and from reading my comic.
Então, gente, isso aqui é o fim do tutorial, pelo que eu entendi. Eu espero.
The Shadow of Absolute Evil. The Shadow of
Vamos ver aqui. O tutorial sumiu, então tem só a campanha. Não.
The final exam. The chock full of knowledge evil now faced the challenge of preparing its dungeon for... Once upon a time, the fairy tale hating evil had traveled to the magical lands of the nauseatingly good The final exam.
Eu não entendi agora. Acabou ou não acabou o tutorial?
And now it's time for a good book. I still have this comic, and if I were to make myself a drink, I could...
Esse aqui é do tutorial final. Enfim, gente. Aqui encerra o vídeo, encerra a live. Muito obrigado que assistiu. Valeu e falou. Fui!